The cardboard box hit the floor with a dull thud, the last piece of a life packed into transit. Janelle stood in the center of the living room, her palms coated in fine gray dust. She wiped them against her legs, the friction sharp and real. This was the first time the space had been truly quiet. For years, her world had been a constant negotiation of schedules, a crowded table, and the echoing demands of a household that never slept. She pulled her phone from her pocket. The screen lit up, showing a face she had known for decades, Kody. A long, jagged road of broken promises sat behind that image. She stared at the digital ghost, then tapped the screen, turning it dark. The silence in the room shifted. It was no longer the heavy, suffocating quiet of a marriage spent in the shadows of others, but something light and steady. She walked to the kitchen counter, where a bouquet of flowers stood in a glass vase. A small card tucked into the stems read, "To New Beginnings." She read the words twice, then set the phone down, facing the horizon as the light began to change. The apartment was hers. The air was still. For the first time, there was no one else to consider. Janelle picked up her phone again, her thumb hovering over the screen. She opened the messaging app, typed "Meet Pete," and hit send. The action felt final, a concrete step away from the habits of the past. She set the device on the counter and moved toward the living room. Then, it happened. A sharp, rhythmic knock echoed through the hallway, vibrating against the wood of the door. The sound was sudden, cutting through the stillness she had spent all morning cultivating. Her heart gave a single, hard thump against her ribs. She paused, took a long, steadying breath, and smoothed her hair back with both hands. She walked to the door, her footsteps firm on the floorboards. She reached for the handle, turned it, and pulled. Pete stood on the landing. He held a small gift bag, his posture relaxed, his weight balanced. He did not lean in, nor did he look past her into the apartment. He simply offered a nod, a gesture of quiet, focused confidence that held no expectations. He waited for her move. Janelle stepped back, opening the door wider to let him inside. The air shifted as he crossed the threshold, bringing a different kind of energy into the room, calm, present, and entirely his own. They moved to the living room, settling into opposite ends of the sofa. The space between them remained, yet the air felt different. Janelle reached for a glass of water on the side table. Her fingers moved toward the handle, and as Pete reached to assist, their hands met against the glass. She did not recoil. The contact was brief, a cool touch that grounded her to the present moment. She watched his eyes. He was looking directly at her, waiting. She began to speak, her voice low at first, describing the lives of her children. Years of practice had conditioned her to look for interruptions, to scan the room for signs of impatience or the need to shift the focus back to someone else. They never came. Pete leaned back, his shoulders relaxed, his attention fixed entirely on her words. He did not redirect, he did not critique, and he did not ask for space. The silence that followed her sentences was not a void to be filled, but a bridge. Janelle gripped the glass, her knuckles pale, then slowly loosened her hold. She realized the habit of negotiating her own existence had stalled. For the first time in decades, the room did not feel like a negotiation table. It felt like a conversation. 2 hours evaporated into the late afternoon. The sun dropped below the roofline, sliding long, amber fingers of light across the floorboards. Janelle watched the shadows stretch, noticing Pete check his watch with a quick, subtle flick of his wrist. He did not rise. He did not reach for his keys. He remained settled in his corner of the sofa, his focus still anchored on her. She began a story from her past, a small, inconsequential memory she had kept tucked away for years. As she reached the climax of the anecdote, she felt a sudden, sharp lightness in her chest. She laughed. It was not a polite, rehearsed sound, but a genuine, unforced vibration that erupted from her throat and filled the quiet room. The sound surprised her. She stopped, her hand covering her mouth, then looked at Pete. He was smiling, not at the joke, but at her. In that moment, the weight of 1,000 past negotiations vanished. She saw the reflection of her own presence in his steady, attentive eyes. She was no longer a fragment of a larger household, but a singular, visible person. The realization bloomed in the space between them, clear and undeniable. She was being heard, and for the first time, she was truly present in her own life. The evening deepened, pushing the last of the amber light from the living room. Janelle rose and walked Pete to the front door. The threshold felt thin, a boundary between the past and the night air. He stepped out, his outline blurring into the darkness of the hallway. She watched the taillights of his car fade until the street was empty once more. She turned back into the apartment. The silence returned, but it held a different weight now. She stepped inside and pulled the door shut. The latch clicked a sharp, final sound. She slid the deadbolt into place, the metal bolt seating itself firmly in the frame. Then, she turned to face the room. The boxes were tucked away. The furniture was still. She walked to the center of the floor and stood still, letting her gaze sweep across the walls, the windows, and the shadows in the corners. There was nobody to negotiate with. There was no schedule to coordinate. She looked at the empty space and she began to smile. The air in the room belonged to her. The silence belonged to her. For the first time, the walls did not contain a life lived for others. They contained only her own.